Hi.
Hi, Adam.
Hey, Rusty. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
I am sitting out in the garden. There may be the odd chicken that sort of wanders through the frame here, so I'm kind of in my happy place here in my little cocoon.
Yes, that's what we like.
Yeah,
Yeah. Any chicken, you just hold them up to the camera and
I promise. If one of them wanders by, I think they're laying right now, so they may destroy the whole interview because they're prima donnas. Who are we kidding? These
yeah.
chickens. Yeah, they're
I
treated
dream
a
of
bit
I
too well.
dream of having chicken calls in these conversations. So,
Yeah,
or a chicken on a trampoline. Is that a trampoline I see in the background?
that's the in-ground trampoline. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That has been the best silliest thing that we did in the backyard for the neighborhood. So it is the thing that brings the neighborhood kids to our backyard. And then and I randomly would find, and they lie there. It's a hangout. So
yeah.
they actually lie there more than they jump. They just this is their hangout. They look up at the trees, and from time to time, they look out the window and go, I wonder who those children are. No idea who that is. But they're in our backyard, so they must know their way around. So, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
cool part of living where I live.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And cool place for those kids to live. Yeah. Yeah. So Adam Bienenstock. Here he is, the man himself, Adam Bienenstock, a friend, a hero in the natural playground world. Uh, we've known each other for many years and colleagues. Maybe we started similar, who knows, time periods.
I was following you.
You were
I
following me.
oh yeah, I was following you in your first book, and
Okay.
because at that moment we were like, what is it that anyone has someone written something useful on this that actually is meaningful that shares my philosophy of why this stuff matters, and your book was landed at that moment when it was really needed. There was just not enough being written about the built environment when it came to connecting kids to nature, and you were it, man. And so yeah, you were one of my heroes early.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I think we have that the mutual like of each other's work. But I will say, so if we started similar time periods, or maybe I was a little ahead, you have taken it. That's the things that constantly amazes me about you and your amazing work is that you constantly take it to the high levels and the I don't know, making it go so many places in the world and at the highest level, like expansion. Like it's not just doing one or two here or there. You are always, when I see you, you're like, yeah, I just met with the head of Canadian national parks, and we're talking about, we're talking about expanding natural playgrounds everywhere, in the parks, or some of the biggest cities, all the parks and rec people. You work with them, not just Canada, but United States too. And I years ago I had my little tour around Australia doing
Yeah,
speaking and stuff, and then lo and behold, there you are in some city. I can't remember if that
I think
was
we were in Adelaide. I'm
yeah,
pretty sure
yeah,
we were in Adelaide.
that's
Yeah.
right. Suddenly there you are with like a whole group of landscape architects, and like they've known you for years and years. So you you have expanded it to incredible proportions, and it's always
Well,
well.
that whole thing of the expansion is, I guess it's fear of missed opportunity is the one part that drives me, and fear of failure once we start down those roads. Complete naivety, because I am. My dad once said well, there was a guy we were in a meeting with, and he's a billionaire who started up a massive business, Tim Hortons, in Canada,
Oh,
and we were. I didn't know who he was. We were just talking at this thing, and my dad walked into the room and said, "So, what are you guys talking about?" A little nervously, because I think he was nervous that I was talking to this guy, and Ron Joyce, and Ron said, "Your son's very brave. All of these things that he's involved in, and I run camps," he said, and I think it's very brave what he does. And my dad said, "No, no, you have to consider the repercussions of your actions to call it brave. My son's an idiot."
He's just going.
He's never considering any of the repercussions. He's just like running. So, and I think there's a certain amount of truth to that. Like I feel, I will say, I feel like we are not going fast enough in North America, even though we're starting to normalize now with the idea of connection to nature in our cities. You know, I'm very aware that I was in earnest starting this right when my kids were being born, and I thought, geez, they're going to be 14, 15 years old, and I'm going to have to explain how my generation screwed up the planet, and it's going to happen, and it happened this year, ironically, right when I said it would, and asking me that question, and I was able to say I've done everything I can.
Mm.
Through every ounce of what I do to try and change that. You know, we're constantly trying to just push at scale. What does it mean to push at scale?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, all of us in the movement that I know, like you and the Christies, and we're all doing our bit around scale. I just happen to be a builder of things, so you see that stuff. I guess running around different places, but yeah, that's the part that excites me. I honestly is the scalability of this, the normalization of this, the growth of an industry, so that people can make a living at it without needing a charitable fund. That is the exciting part for me.
It's amazing to think about when we were starting, what was the mentality, the thinking around this kind of stuff. And of course, there were lots and lots of people that want to connect children to nature and believe this. And, you know, we're kind of joining them with kind of our skill set to kind of add to that. And yet, as far as like the popular conversation, it felt like it was just warming up.
Oh yeah.
But so that was, you know, who knows how long that was, like, you know, 15, 20 years ago.
In
Yeah.
there, yeah.
Yeah. What would you say is the change in perception or the built environment, or
Well, I think there's a
what you've
couple of big
seen?
moments,
Yeah.
right? For me, you know, first I just remember those early moments. It was not hard to be a big fish because the pond was so small
Mm-hmm.
at that moment. And now you're another one of those people who have just focused on downloading as much knowledge as quick as you can to as many people as you can through your books, through your talks, through your training. You've always focused on that. And that was one of the things that inspired me too. Like, if this is going to hit scale, we got to be doing knowledge transfer at a crazy rate. Everything we know, we got to dump into the marketplace, because frankly, it's just too easy to do the not so good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
To order some plastic and steel out of a catalog and then just call it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what everyone was doing. They're just pressing the easy button, and there wasn't as much of a reason why being thought about this. So early on, we were doing it knowing that this was a coming crisis, and then somewhere in the last 10 years, it actually was a crisis. And then in the last 3 or 4 years, I felt like everything changed again. About 5 years ago, we stopped talking about connection to nature so much as a thing to solve. And we reframed all of our conversations to be, what are the biggest problems you're facing today? Well, we can solve that. And nature is going to be the tool that we use to solve those problems.
Mm-hmm.
So that conversation, I think, flipped in the last 5 years. People have started to realize, you got a problem with bullying? Okay, we do this, bullying's going to go. We're going to not have a problem with that anymore. You have a problem with balance and agility scores? Well, if we do this in a fully sensory way, that's going to go away. You have a problem with empathy scores. You have a problem with math skills. So we started to look at what the problems of the day were. And then now we can approach people with this as a solution. This isn't one more thing you got to do. We're actually providing a solution to all those other things that we're scoring worse and worse and worse on as a nation.
Mm-hmm. Anxiety, depression, stress. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and massive this year. Like, the anxiety and stress thing is just, it's bonkers. And we, like, I don't know about how you think about this, but we weren't doing that well before the pandemic.
No.
Like, there was this somehow, I don't want to go back to normal because that was not a good place.
No.
So what was it, 52 and a half hours a week screen time prior to the pandemic 4 years ago. And I saw one the last week. Average screen time for an 8-year-old this last year was 75 hours a week.
Yeah.
That is bonkers. It's just like totally bonkers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we have huge deficits, like the sensory deficits that have gone on, the macro microorganism deficit, the gut biome stuff that we have messed with that is going to affect anxiety and depression over this last year is it's going to take years of work to do better. So, and I think a lot of people are starting to see it.
I love that idea about nature play isn't the, or connection to nature. That's not the end. That's not the end goal. It is. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
have all these
For me,
different
it is.
layers. Yeah, we have all these different layers. But the idea that that is a solution, and
Yeah,
that's what people are looking for. That's what principals are looking for. Teachers are looking for. Parents look for. We need solutions.
yeah,
And then I always think about just play in general, like as solution to so many different things. And the beauty is it's a great it's a in many ways it's an easy solution.
yeah.
It's a fun solution. It's like a
So
solution that,
explain to me what you're against. Are you against play or nature? You know, it's hard to have a really defensible position in there, isn't it? Like, you know, I want to have fun and I hate green stuff. All right, we're probably not going to get along. You know, yeah, that line of you know, connection to nature isn't the problem we have to solve. It's the solution to all of the biggest problems of the day. And that line has been, you know, that's sort of the main line for everyone on our staff to have there in front of them, and it's written up on the walls. So as our employees come to work, they see that, and that's a big, important part of how we frame everything that we do now.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, ask people what their biggest problem is. I will guarantee you, I will have a study now, and we didn't when we started.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of this was our gut. A lot of this was, you know, David Sobel had written about it, and Silent Spring, and you know, we were cherry picking little bits of data somehow to say, hey, this is important,
Mm-hmm.
and without people understanding that the problem was significant, and without the research there, it was tough. Well, now you have a solid paper, like double blind study on just about every metric that could be important to a parent. We can show the data set that shows, you know, this solves that problem, or
Mm-hmm.
at least goes a long way towards solving the problem,
Mm-hmm.
creates an environment where the problem can be solved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm glad you're writing again, man.
Thanks.
You never stop. I mean, the books come out, but that means there's this continuum of writing, doesn't it? Do you ever take a break?
Yeah, I take breaks. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
This is a break.
Oh, this is it?
Yeah, this is, yeah. I get to have fun now and talk about it. You know, people talk
Nice.
about that, like there's the act of writing, and then there's like having written,
Right.
and that always feels good and relieving. But you know, now it's the conversations, and that's what I've really liked. You know, kind of in for me in this pandemic time, to be, you know, I did presentations in Zoom and, you know, preaching the gospel and all that,
Sure.
but I've also been able to just be one of a group multiple times to just have conversations about risky play,
Yeah,
conversations
yeah.
about fears, you know, conversations about licensing, conversations about, you know, all the stuff, and just hear it. And for me, that's really rewarding, because often, you know, especially in a global pandemic, you might put something out and it feels like it's in the void. Like, did anyone see that? Or, you know, what do people think?
Right, right.
But then the idea of like that, it's the conversations are happening, and you know, I thought like, oh, you know, you write a book, you do something, you think, all right, people are gonna finish that, and then boom, it's all gonna be different. But what I realize is that they're gonna read it, and then the journey kind of begins then, of like them thinking about like, well, what do I say yes to? What do I say no to? How do I say yes more? Why do I say no?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, a lot of the jokes that I tell and the stories I tell are about trying to figure out a way for them to see themselves, maybe not when I'm giving the talk, but maybe afterwards. I don't know. There's like lawnmowers and stuff going on in the background here. I don't know. Is it messing this up? Or are you okay?
That's fine. No, I heard some chickens too earlier. So no,
Yeah, they were actually on the table, like literally, like there was a head like right here and here, but you didn't see it.
No.
Just anyway. So sorry, we were saying there's. I think I've lost my train of thought. Sorry with all the noise in the background, but
we're saying about the conversation, like when does it start, or when do people's journeys, or when you're talking to people, or they read the book.
So every story that you tell, and you're a storyteller in your books, every story that I tell, I'm not expecting. A lot of the people in the audience are the problem, and they're not getting out of their own way, and they're making excuses, saying, "Well, I can't do that because," and there's always a lie. I can't do that because of someone else. My director would say no, my inspector would say no, my insurance company would say no, and so I tell stories about this stuff, not so that I'm beating them up in it, so we can all laugh about that person, and maybe at some point in the next day or two they can go, wait a second, that was me. I love that. If we do this confrontationally, it doesn't work very well.
Yeah.
But if we do this by telling them, there's a lot of, I mean, honestly, when I'm going through something with someone and we're trying to get through a wall of no, and for not really a good reason, I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is going to be a good story on my next talk. Yeah. Can't wait to tell this story. This is hilarious. They said no to a pine tree because they were worried about the pine cones knocking out a child. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's
so nuts.
You couldn't make that up.
No, I mean, so awesome. So I'm going to tell that story. I have a letter from a city about that one, where they had said no to pine trees because the pine cones were gonna be a problem because they were too big and they were gonna actually knock out a child. Yeah. So I had to do a presentation to the city, and I walked in and said, I just want to thank you for your hard work and diligence on this. It's fantastic. I mean, Canada's national tree is the white pine, and I think it's about time someone would actually bring up the point that we should really name a less dangerous tree as our national tree. It's just the group of 7, our most famous painters in Canada, should have found a different muse because they just painted that pine tree over and over again. And you're very smart people, and I want to thank you for this. And there's one guy in the audience who had his head in the hands going, oh no, what are you doing? And they were nodding their heads, and I said, come on guys, I'm joking. This is crazy. We're all gonna look really crazy if we do this. So I'm doing this as a joke. And one of the guys doesn't like me. The rest of them thought it was kind of funny. But it's amazing the no's that people can throw out when they just don't want to have to do something different. Yeah. No, I think we've built an infrastructure around public space that the best scenario, if you stick your neck out, the best scenario is that you don't get your head cut off. Mm-hmm. And so anything new, no one just results in no one putting their neck out for anything new, anything slightly different. And they just turtle. And that's what we see the nose coming from, I think, more than anything else.
It's interesting. Like, we as humans have, wild imaginations, and we got all sorts of, gumption to get things done and to take it to the next level and work together and, do amazing things. But yeah, who are the decisions, why did the shift go to decision-making of, just the accountants, just the insurance people, just the fear-based stuff. And I think for me, that's always been something that I didn't want to have dictate my life in general and my work life and all this stuff of like, these things could have, it's all risk benefit analysis, whatever we're doing in life. But to let fear stop, because fear, it's all, all made up. We're making things up, and it's good to look out for things that could hurt. Maybe a pine cone could, could think it through. And then, whatever, come up with, and I like doing this with groups where we'll go through risk benefit analysis.
Yeah,
And I think like we're really good at thinking of the negative things. And in the old days, that's all we thought of,
right,
looking
right.
at playground, looking at anything, like you look at the risks. And so I think that, and that's great. But I think that's one of the biggest things now is like, okay, fine, look at those risks,
Yeah.
but now let's look at the benefits.
Compared to what?
Yeah,
Compared to what? It has to
yeah,
be the
right.
other question. So compared to what?
Yes.
I
Yeah,
understand that's a risk, but
yeah.
compared to what? If we do nothing, how are we faring right now? Are kids more
Geesh.
aggressive? Are kids more stressed out or less? Are they better in terms of their scores on STEM? Is their focus and attention spans improved or gotten worse? How's their fitness? How's their health? How's their immune system? How's their immune response? I mean, any measure right now, if you go into the last 20 years,
Geesh.
we are not doing better as a nation. We're just not. Every score is a little worse or a lot worse.
Hmm.
And so we got to try something else.
Mm-hmm.
We have to. We're obliged to. We're the grown-ups. So my favorite risk management person that I will say doesn't like me. I won't name her, but she was for a large school board. And I said, like, so what is the actual risk management policy? Like, boil it down for me. And she says, it's simple. When in doubt, rip it out.
Yeah.
And I went, oh,
Mm-hmm.
that is soul sucking.
When in doubt, rip it out.
Because
And anything could be in doubt.
everything can be in
Yeah.
doubt.
Yeah.
So you end up with nothing. And then you end up with more aggressive behaviors
Yeah.
and more injuries and all this stuff because there is nothing to do. So all of the worst behaviors pop to the surface. And yeah, that line really stuck with me. That's about 12 years ago that I got faced with that. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to figure out a workaround with you because I'm not sure we're going to get there together.
Mm-hmm.
And we did. It I think took a little under 8 years for me to get around, but we got around.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's a that compared to what piece, the comparative risk is a missing piece. You know what I think that I was talking to a guy about this. I think that there's a big part of this where no one's ever going to change if they have to admit that what they've done for the last, in order to change, they have to admit that what they've done for the last 20 years is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a lot of people, frankly, who look like me and you often. I know if I go into a room and everyone looks like me, I'm in a lot of trouble because these are people who are stuck in their opinions generally.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go into these rooms and I realize if I go in there and really berate them while I joke about this stuff, there has to be a way out so that they don't have to admit that what they've done for the last 20 years is wrong. And I talk a lot about the goalpost moving. 20 years ago, the goalposts were in a totally different place.
Mm-hmm.
Our jobs as parks managers was not as healthcare workers or to deal with the emotions of the kids. It was to deal with the maintainable space at a time when kids were still spending 4 hours a day out climbing trees and doing stuff anyway.
Yeah.
And now we're at less than 48 minutes a day for those kids outside anywhere with roam rates at 150 to 300 yards. And the spaces that we design now have to encapsulate every one of the experiences that we need and every one of the benefits they can get from outside because there's nowhere left for kids. And so the goalposts have moved. It's a totally different game now. Our public space has to be looked at through the lens of the health and development of our children. And we never had to do that before as park people. That didn't matter. That wasn't the job. That was parents' job. This wasn't the job of designing public space. So I think if you can let them off the hook, then you're more likely to be able to get them to.
Okay. So you're saying things are different. So now we have to think different and design.
You've been right for the last 20 years. It's just
there you go.
Things are totally different now.
Yeah.
So, and that's not your fault. We all screwed it up collectively.
Yeah.
But now it's on you to solve the problems that we as a society created. And it's just different. It's not your fault that it got here. It will be if we don't change now, though.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like there's um, a lot of the stuff, like early on when we were in this, I don't know, there's a lot of the movement. Uh, um, we're in a pretty self-righteous movement. I might just throw that out there. Like, we're right. You know, this stuff back here, this is better, and it makes people feel better, and the environment needs the help, and the kids need to be a part of it, and it's but I also think that we as a movement have done a great job at making that an inclusive and open place for everybody. It's been a pretty exclusive club for a while. So I think that's the other thing that's changed in the last few years. We're just seeing a way bigger audience now for wanting to be involved with nature. And I don't know. Do you think the pandemic changed the way people think?
I do. I do. I think just in general of the outdoors being suddenly an option, suddenly like, oh, the outdoors is a safe place to be.
Yeah.
It's a healthy place to be, you know. So it was almost like they were forced to be out there, right? That's one of the silver linings. And I know from my own, my own son's preschool became an all outside preschool, and they did it. And I helped with some basic interventions, but they bundled them up and went all year long, only inside a couple times. And how amazing that is. And
So good.
how many no's people have had all across the country, North America, around the world. We have to deal with clothes, we have to deal with scheduling of, outside, all those no's that makes it so hard to get outside. And then suddenly when it's like, oh, well, that's our way to survive, or that's our way to, do anything to be healthy if we want to get back, live. And suddenly we're like, oh, we're solving those problems.
Right.
We're using our creative brains. And I just think that over and over, we can be creative in the reasons to say no, or we can be creative in the ways that we say yes. And when we say yes, I think that things open up and people want to help, especially when it's, nature and good stuff for kids. It's like, yeah, it's like the more that we can say yes, the more that we can be like, okay, we want to be smart, we want to keep things safe and all that. But
Yeah.
the doors open up.
I had a great chat with a hero of mine, Rob Bell, who won the best teacher in the country in Canada last year, one of these sort of star teachers. And he's the one you want your kid in his class, because that year will be the year that changes your kid and opens up, the world of possibilities and conversation, and he's just got a spark. And so a year ago, March, we're sitting down like, man, I don't envy you this year, man. This is gonna be a tough year. And he goes, oh, this year is awesome. And I said, why would you say that? And he goes, no one can get in my way. All of the people who used to say no, they can't say no. This is my year. Any stupid idea I've got, I can throw it this year, and they've all got bigger problems, bigger. It's all good. It's all me. It's outside the whole time. There's no curfew. It's time to open up the throttle. And I thought, there's not everyone gets to feel that, but I thought that was such a cool way to think about this. We could actually try new things this year. This is opportunity, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, for all the reasons that in the past it just, the momentum, it just wasn't, and not always quite there, or just stuck in a ways, or not enough extra time, and here it was, everything just like turned upside down. And yeah, it's like let's change things for the better. Here's an opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, my big year, the big change for us was the playground thing right at the beginning. That kind of was getting roped off. There was a few months there, where playgrounds weren't really a popular conversation, and we shifted our focus to outdoor classrooms and thinking of outdoor learning environments, and our, just like you, the playgrounds that we build, these are outdoor learning environments. We've always thought about it that way. We say playgrounds because there's a budget designated for playgrounds so that we
Sure.
can actually attack that. But it's not just about the gross motor play that budget was for. It's about all the other really juicy stuff, the
Yeah.
full engagement stuff. And so we thought, okay, we got to really focus on outdoor learning environments as a COVID response. And and I had a conversation. We thought that it was going to be an important thing to do. We didn't know where it was headed exactly. And I remember having a conversation earlier with one of the superintendents, and he said, "So I really want to talk to you about this, but basically, you're offering me a fire extinguisher, and my whole school's on fire, and I don't have time to talk to you about the fire extinguisher because the whole school is on fire."
Mm-hmm.
And it's just there's these huge systemic flaws in education that were exposed, that superintendents and teachers are just getting battered with this year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not been until the last few months that people are starting to really, we've just seen massive shift towards this idea of outdoor learning, because somehow the bulk of the worst of this is starting to shift behind us, and we can start to look ahead. It seems like the big fire might be getting snuffed out, and we can look at, okay, what are the longer term solutions now or something. But the idea that you couldn't take a fire extinguisher because the fire was just too big, I felt every superintendent got to feel that way.
Oh man, all over North America, all over the world.
Yeah,
Every school district, every school, every having to deal with it.
there's something different right now. Like this spring has been like blow the doors off busy, and you know, it's not even really June yet, and everyone's kind of, this is a real conversation that's being had over and over again. And coming out of the woodwork, I mean, I'm hearing it a lot. Like, I've been thinking about doing this for a while, and now I'm just like, we got to get this done. And that opening line in a first conversation with someone is happening over and over again.
Yeah.
Which is just awesome.
Yeah, like now's the time.
Yeah.
People,
no excuses now.
yeah.
We got to go.
Yeah. Puts
Teachers
things in
are demanding it.
perspective. Yeah. Yeah, it's time. Maybe there's different monies that are moving around, and they're like, yeah, let's go for this. And they got a taste of it, if people did the outdoor thing. What are
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Yeah, no. All right.
I was just gonna ask, like, well, what are some of your favorite, of the solutions? What are some of the favorite things that you're seeing people ask for or do, just in general of nature play or the outdoor classrooms, or what are some of your optimistic?
Well, I mean, so I'm gonna. I would go straight to the scalable solutions. So so we're looking at, because there's a lot of design. So to take an entire paved site and turn that into something rich and enduring and nurturing and sensory and real and alive and green and juicy and messy, it isn't cheap to go all the way down that road. And it's prohibitive, because a lot of people have spent, especially the last couple of decades, a lot of time paving over, making it simple, and are now seeing some pretty rough results. So the solutions that we're being hit up for are, how do we take that? What are the things that we can just place on top? How can we have nature in pods that we can add in bits? We're seeing rooftops now like I've never seen before, where we're plonking these surface mounted systems out of big logs and trees and so on that you can just drop in. And we're seeing that rooftop solutions that we created years ago that had a little bit of like traction, but not a lot. It's just another solution to add into the sort of group of things that you can do if you have to do something in a hurry. This year, we're seeing that really be interesting to people. We're seeing, people saying, okay, not on a rooftop. Like, I've got a fully paved site. I've astroturfed everything. I got one place that they even astroturfed the raised beds. The whole thing is artificial turf.
What?
The entire space, the walls of the raised beds, like I gotta send you the picture. It's hilarious. It's there must have been a discount on astroturf. It's
Yeah,
everywhere.
that's it. New building material.
You go onto the site and you just feel like you're cooking. The heat is crazy.
Yeah.
And the exposure, and being a bald guy, I'm like, I'm trying to pull my shirt over me, and yeah, you see, I'm a little envious. You got.
Well,
Don't talk to me about one spot on your head. That's not funny. Two things I'll never have is hair like yours or abs. These things are gone. So just accept it the way it is. So anyway, but this crazy heat island, and so what do you do there? So now there are solutions that you can just we can drop in different pods and bring nature in on the top without having to cut it up, without having to rip it up, and provide an experience that's more sensory. So we're seeing. It's weird. I mean, I can't remember how many projects, but there's a lot of projects. Like we're into we'll probably do 50 this year of just dropping onto a flat space, which is very strange to do that many on flat paved spaces where we're not digging anything up. We used to have to dig everything up. That was
Yeah.
So
well, I love that idea though of people that they could have the most traditional playground. There's flat space, it's got asphalt, it's got equipment, and that's okay, because over in this corner they can just start to do something different. And they could even still keep all that other stuff. People don't have to feel bad that they have that stuff.
But don't I kind of love those, because at that moment, if you do it right and you do it so that it is that rich, juicy, living, full on, you've changed topography a little bit and you've added, some logs and some things that are rotting away and plants they can touch and things they can taste. And it's like, and you can, that full sensory, full on thing, and they're making stuff there, and you've added some loose parts. And then you have the play structure over there because they still want to keep it because it's new.
Yeah.
Within 2 years, I know I'm getting a call. I'm getting a call. They're
out
like,
of here.
Nobody uses that thing anymore. They're only on your space. We don't have enough of that.
Yeah.
They're clearly not interested in this thing. And they say it dawns on them that non-sensory, pure gross motor thing, once they've experienced it, their teachers start to demand it within a very short period of time. There is something about this that changes minds if you just get your toe in the door.
Yeah, the gateway.
Yeah,
just to see it, for people just to see it.
Yeah. When we started, excuse me, a lot of what we did was, by we, I mean you and I know that we both, I remember an early conversation about the work, and sorry, I got something in my throat. I just inhaled a fly.
Yeah, I can see there's some stuff buzzing around.
I'm not dying. I have a bug in my lung. Ah, dear me.
We have it right here. We'll record it. We got you.
Perfect. You got me now.
Adam Bienenstock's final words.
Yeah. Dial 911 just in case. So you only have one more number to dial. I'm just kidding. So when we started, I used to, this is something that's really changed since the first time I met you till now. I know I used to talk a lot of in nostalgic terms about, remember when you were a kid and your favorite thing to do when you were a kid. And I could really rely on that to get people to go, oh, yeah, that. Mm-hmm. And something in the last 5 years has changed in the dialogue, because there's a whole generation of teachers now that I end up with where that doesn't work, where they didn't grow up in a rich, natural environment, where I'm in New York City or I'm in Toronto or, one of these sort of highly paved cities. And they can't rely on that nostalgic experience. I got to do better. I have to up my game. I have to talk about the solutions. I have to understand and empathize with what is tough for them as a teacher working right now. and then be able to explain to them without using nostalgia. It's
Hmm.
another thing. People aren't going to change. If I tell them that they grew up wrong, that's not a good starting place for earning trust. So we really are, I'm seeing a huge shift in the way we have to talk to people and present. So I'm very aware of the age of the people that I'm speaking with. I go to a Rotary, it's a nostalgia play.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
We're right down the road of when you were a kid, and oh yeah, I missed that. And if everyone's 21 and I'm in New York City, I'm not gonna be able to do that. We're gonna talk about we're gonna have to talk about the things that they've noticed with with the kids that they now supervise, and what the most difficult parts are, and talk through some of the stats on this and how we can make improvements to their lives and what's in it for them if they embrace this. Obviously there's still a whole bunch. I didn't want to paint a generation the same way. It's just the numbers change.
Yeah.
I did a talk at landscape architecture school last year, and it was year and a half ago, I guess now. And I asked how many of them had gone camping overnight. And I'd say 40% of them had not. And I said, well, you have to, because you can't be allowed to design the future of nature connection if you've never experienced it in its raw form. There's a responsibility of the people who are doing this work to have that experience and to understand what that is. I think that freaked me out. That could potentially mean 40% of the people graduating have never truly experienced a pure natural environment. So it's a very different place that we're in now versus where we were, but there's also a huge taking up of this from a younger generation that's super encouraging. So it's two sides to the sword, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just working on my kind of first project where the people in charge were much younger than me, the founders of the school, and it's very different. Usually, it was people older than me, or that generation, or maybe my generation, but now it was like supercharged, high power millennials. But that want to go in this direction. That know
very smart. Very so there's something really encouraging about that right now, where I feel like I got up my game every day in order to keep up, which is good for me. And I'm being inspired by all kinds of people now. It's so good to see so many people starting to do this work.
What's your favorite story or solution that you've heard from some people that have made changes to their space or the way of doing things or the built environment? There's
a bunch of favorite stories. I think one of my favorite stories was working with a Montessori school, and it was pretty much a paved site, and it was that perfect flat paved rubber surface. There was a plastic and steel thing sitting in the middle, and there was really nothing else there. And we went in, and they wanted to go the whole way down this road. They wanted to have quiet, contemplative little pockets and fine motor stuff and the gross motor stuff and the creative stuff. And they wanted to have wet, mucky. They wanted a mud pit. And this is 10 years ago when no one was willing to do a mud pit except you crazy bucket. So that to me was like, oh my God, they want a mud pit. This is people all in. They get this. So we did all of that work. And then I got an email about a month later. And in the email, it says, how you pull your phone out of your pocket and look at it. You just read the first line. No one ever reads the rest. You put your phone back in your pocket. This one actually said, "We're having more accidents," is the title of the email. And I don't know about you, but we haven't had a claim for injury ever. We just, as two folks right here between us have done consulted on and been involved in thousands of sites, to have no claims in the playground industry
Yeah.
makes us an anomaly in
Yeah.
the playground industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I looked at that and I was like, yeah, we're having more
Yeah.
accidents. I phoned her right away. I said, what's going on? What can I help with? What's gone wrong? And she starts laughing at me. She goes, you didn't even read your email, did you? And I said, no, I didn't read my email. She goes, no, the kids are peeing their pants more. Those are the accidents. And, and I'm like, that was like the best compliment I ever had. That was awesome. I felt like, they're staying long enough to pee their pants. I did something right, you know. One of my favorite moments was with her.
Yeah, they're too focused.
Yeah, the tongue sticking out, in the moment, that place of mastery for every one of the kids, and not just the A-type kids. You know, we had a consult. It's like a cage match. It was a weird thing. It was us, and it was a plastic and steel industry regular, and they had us both in. We both had 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So you're supposed to go in and give your best pitch. Yeah, 20 minutes, and then at the end of the meeting, we're deciding for our community what we're doing. All right, this is kind of cool. This is like a cage match. This is great. I love it. So we go in, and I said to her, the other person presenting, I said, you pick. You want to go first? You want to go last? Say what you want. I'm gonna let you go first because I want to be able to comment on all the things you say. And I said, okay. So went ahead, did my thing, show some cool pictures and talked a bit and asked a lot of questions and see what they want. I said, it doesn't really matter what I want. This is about what you guys want. And there was a group of kids, sort of 12, 11 years old, sitting in the middle. They had a lot of questions, and they were sort of like really in the moment focused. And we finished up, and I said, okay, well, that's my 20 minutes. I gotta go, and Susan's on next. So she came on and she said, the reason that we have to go plastic and steel is because kids these days don't get enough exercise. So we got to make this all about gross motor because you need it. And you only, when we look at our stats, are on the play structure for 19 to 22 minutes. So that's all we got you for now, because that's the attention span. And so we got to make it all about gross motor, and that is it. And one of the 3 12-year-olds put up her hand, and she says, or you could just make it more interesting so we'd want to be there longer. And I'm like, I love that girl. I love her. She's my new favorite person. Yes. So not a plant, she said it all on her own. She's like, yeah, we're bored, man.
Yeah.
We want more. We want not just that, what else?
Yeah.
And I think that there's too many people in the design world that forgot what it was like to be a kid.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. A friend of mine got a dissertation at Cornell, and one of the things that she was studying and wrote about was looking at play at the hands-on nature anarchy zone at the Ithaca Children's Garden.
Favorite place, gotta go.
Where it's loose parts, mud, hills, trees to climb, tires, boards, shovels, the whole thing. And the same group of kids playing on that versus when they're kind of at their home playground. This was like a summer camp, summer, like just, it wasn't really a camp, but just like they were there all summer. So they would kind of go back and forth. And you look, the kids at the anarchy zone engaged, of course, the whole time. And that's the whole time for hours. The adults, the kind of counselors, are saying they're just sitting on benches around the outside because they're like, we don't have to do anything, that we're kind of like useless here. And then studying the play on the traditional playground, and they have a great, expensive, playground equipment and fixed, and everything. But it was like, it engaged them for, there it was, 19 or 20 minutes. And, they're swinging, they're climbing, they're, But then it was almost like clockwork. Like each time we go, it was like after 20 minutes, that was it. And then there was disagreements. There was a scarcity of extra materials. Kids were using it in ways that it wasn't designed for. So they were starting to have injuries. That stuff just started. And at the Anarchy Zone, they were never bored. They never ran out of things to do. Suddenly it was time to go. They'd look up from whatever they had been involved in for all that time. And yeah, yeah. And but one of the sad things about that, at least in the States, is that elementary school recess is about 20 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. So it's the perfect wrong amount of time anyway.
Yeah.
So there's no moment to cycle from that one thing to the next thing to the next thing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
because I mean, if you think, I've always thought about it this way: the most aggressive kid, you're the teacher, you know that kid's name, you know exactly who I'm talking about, because that kid is on the tip of your tongue if you're the one on playground duty.
Hmm.
And those spaces that cater purely to gross motor actually are teaching that kid. That's the kid that you want. If there's one thing you want for that kid, it's to learn about empathy and to
Hmm.
learn about collaboration and concern for the others around him. You want that kid to slow down and to
Hmm.
nurture. And none of that will happen if it's only a gross motor space. So we've actually, in the name of that kid that we look at and go, see, playground's doing well, there's a kid running around there.
Yes.
We've actually done a disservice to that kid, because the thing that kid needs most to learn are absent from
Hmm.
that. So everybody loses. We're not even being successful at the ones that we're claiming we were doing the
Mm.
original design for if we just only focus on the gross motor side.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's I love your spaces because of this. I love the complete rich sort of overwhelming sensory stuff. I don't know about you. I've been doing this new thing when I go into the spaces and look at it afterwards, because we used to just do pattern mapping, and now I'm counting the number of times the tongue sticks out. Because that is a
Uh-huh.
cool marker. That's like
Uh-huh.
full in
Uh-huh. You
cognitive
are
engagement. Like
focused, you're digging, you're watching.
that's the big moment. And
Uh-huh.
so I'm loving doing the count. So I'm just started doing the count before
Yeah.
and then the count afterwards when we're
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
And we're going double or triple the tongue sticking out.
That's it. That's
So
it.
we're doing good. That
Yeah.
means cognitively, developmentally engaged. Maybe we should just do all. If we all just started doing that, we could have a massive study across the nation.
Seriously, that's the new research. That's the new, yeah,
The
matrix
easy
marker.
marker.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeez. Well, it's been great being able to listen to you and have my tongue sticking out
Yeah.
as I
Yeah.
learn
Yeah.
and grow. All the stuff that you're doing, always inspiring and fun, and yeah, yeah, help
Well,
us all take
and
it to the next level.
thanks for having me, man. I actually miss you. I know that sounds weird, but I do.
Yeah.
Um, I spend a lot of time pushing and doing battle and trying to make things happen, and I get re-inspired every time I talk to you. So I feel like I'm all juiced up and ready to go again. Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right. Me too. Me too. Good. Well, good seeing you there and you're in the green.
Yeah, yeah.
Hug a chicken for me.
Whatever that means.
Yeah. We'll let you